Yes, indeed. Welcome, everybody.
Yeah.
Good morning.
What's happening?
What's up, world?
What's
welcome to the baddest. Just want to welcome everybody real quick to the baddest morning show on the planet, only to get better. Your organic, free-range soul food for your media diet and your boom bap breakfast. Welcome to the RemiX. I'm Jared Ball. What's up, good people?
What's happening?
What's up?
Man, who we got in the building today?
Marcy already said I'm here.
Okay, Marcy Lee's in the building.
Yeah. Jackie and Baba Lukman are here. What's up, people?
Yep.
Jackie and Baba himself. Yo, I am Kalonji John Machanga. The riot started. The remix is happening right the fuck now. We in here. What the deal is? Good morning, Vietnam.
Absolutely.
Yeah. What's happening, JB?
There's a lot going on. There was something I wanted to I thought would be a kind of a nice way for us to get started, because I know one of the things we wanted to start with when we open up in these morning blocks is to not only welcome everybody but chop it up a little bit. And I don't know if you all heard the news about yesterday about the passing of the former Vice President Walter Mondale. Mm-hmm. But there was something very interesting that I thought was not covered that I thought was a nice way for us to introduce how we get down on this show.
Okay.
So in the discussion of his passing, one of the things that I have not heard or seen yet, and I'm not sure will come up elsewhere, is that Walter Mondale, not only was he vice president, but he actually sat on Frank Church's infamous or famous church committee.
That's right.
Mm-hmm. And for many of us, the church committee remains extremely important because that's one of the first times that it revealed the extent to which the state was involved in suppressing what are described by them as counterinsurgency movements, represented by some of us right here. But one of the things that came out specific to what I think our project is that in that church committee revelation was a project, something called Project Shamrock. Which Frank Church said was probably the largest government interception program affecting Americans ever taken. And basically what it was that pre-World War II, from the 1940s up until about 1975, officially ended, I think, in 1977, Project Shamrock was a total interception of all communication in this country involving Western Union, ITT, and the NSA, what would become the NSA, the pre-NSA, the NSA, and other intelligence agencies collecting and surveilling communication specifically to make sure the kinds of unsanctioned communication we represent and are engaged in right here would never take place. So
that's right.
Good morning. Welcome to the remix. Shout out to Black Power Media.
Look here, man. Judge came in the door, kicking it in like look, we know y'all here. We know y'all here. From the Palmer raids to the church committee to the NSA to right the fuck now on social media to whoever's on here on the remix and for the police in the tradition of the people where I come from, I like to say fuck the police and their corporate sponsors. You know what I mean?
Amen.
You got to be somewhat of a real weirdo to sit around listening to other people's shit, their communications, tapping their phones, tapping their rooms. You're a weird motherfucker. I just want to say that to you. And that's coming live from the remix. Anyway, it's a beautiful
shout out
day.
to Ricky Ryan. Happy 420. That's right. Happy 420.
Happy 420.
Yeah.
Good God Almighty. I'm about to smoke me a drink. Yeah.
He already got started.
Yeah,
right now.
Yeah.
So no, go ahead.
No. I was just gonna compliment you on your shirt. Jared came to the spot looking extra fly and shit.
He dressed up.
No.
He dressed up.
You know what I mean? Okay.
The best edition of Africana Chic laid down by Dr. James Turner. I'm trying to do the best I can.
Hey,
But as I've told you all there, it's all downhill from here. I started at the top.
Photo shoot fresh.
I wanted to come out the box. I'm very excited about what we're doing here because as someone who consumes a lot of media, I wanted something better for my media diet. I don't see anything like what we're trying to do here happening. So I want to just thank all of you and all of our other comrades who are going to appear all throughout the rest of this morning and all throughout the rest of this RemiX venture. Shout out and peace to all of you. Shout out to May in the background. We appreciate all that. So, I mean,
hey, Jared, that, Roland Martin looking at this, he's going to be like, look, just come over here and see the morning show unfiltered. Right here on Roland Martin.
Listen. He happily lets everybody know that his is the only. What's up, Kamal Franklin, the other partner in time?
Fashion.
I made it. To the morning show.
You made it.
Only what light-skinned guys can do. They just pop up.
Suddenly got bright. No, I'm just kidding.
Jay, we're gonna need our own show, Beige in the morning. That's
what I'm saying. Beige in the morning with the ear doctor. You know what I'm saying?
That's right.
Yeah.
Do that.
Well, be heavy on the cream.
I was trying to hold it down. Thanks for showing up, Kamal. It was rough until you got here. You got a bob and weave all morning.
That's how it's going to be up in here, I see.
Yeah, no, really.
We just talking about Roland Martin, the big head dude. What's
he's proud of saying
that big head dude.
That his is the only, black morning show. I think not only will that not be true anymore, but even with him here, I don't feel like there's any competition because we're providing something for an audience that isn't looking for his show anyway. So it's all good. He can, we're not chasing after him or anybody else. We're here for our audience and for the folks that need this kind of Black Power media in the morning. That boom bap breakfast.
Plus, we mad. We doper than them anyway. You know what I'm saying? I'm just saying, come out the gate. You know what I'm saying? I mean, we have a dynamite. It's like we the Wu-Tang Clan of radio right now.
That touches my heart.
BPM ain't nothing to fuck with. BPM ain't nothing to fuck with. Aha! Yeah, so that's how we going out like that.
Don't do old dirty bastard. Oh. Do not sit there and do old dirty bastard.
Old dirty Luke. I know some of y'all watch.
Hey, we do like that news raw though. We do like that.
We like it raw.
Yeah. And that's the exciting part about what we're doing. Like the Roland Martins can't touch us because we're going to talk about these issues, these news issues, the social issues, and in a way that African people need to hear it, the truth, raw, unfiltered, and uncover what these spooks really doing.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. I mean, look at our lineup, man. We have not only the people on this page right here, but we also have Dr. CBS. We have Dr. Layla Brown. We have Dr. Ichili. Yes.
Yeah.
Right? Okay.
Ichile.
Yeah. We have Baba Sundiata. You know what I'm saying? That's on the BPM joint. But we also have this new wild card. And my man Jared's going to play a clip from one of our
This is the best. This is the
one
best.
of our future hosts. And I think, Jared, are we ready to play that now? We can just get
let's get it. I'm gonna pull it up right here. I mean, it's I think this is a great way to introduce who is gonna be joining us in the not too distant future. Let's just check it out.
From a show called Burn It Down with Kim Brown. You can get it on iTunes. You can watch it on any number of social media platforms, none of which has even considered censoring it. As you watch, ask yourself, how much influence should someone like this have over the country where your family lives?
For the record, I support all that. I support the looting of the damn Dollar Tree. I support looting of what other did they loot? Like the advanced auto parts. I remember last year they was looting Target. I support all that. Loot all that. You know why? Because black people and marginalized and oppressed people could loot every store in this whole country for 200 years. It would not even come close to debt that America owes us. Tell all that
Okay.
only language this country understands.
Look at him.
She says,
Look at
put
him.
it down. So how are people in church responding to this?
How
We're pretty sure
responding
the
to this?
FBI isn't at Kim Brown's house tonight.
Wow.
The content that 60 Minutes isn't planning some extensive hit piece on her. No, those are reserved for Florida governors. In America's many news.
Anyway, whatever.
Yeah. Tucker and the press, FTP. Yeah. So this is what we're dealing with here. This is what you should expect on Black Power Media and future episodes of the RemiX morning show. Folks like Kim Brown, she didn't even get in the door yet. She already kicking it down. So,
and by the way, she's expressing what Kwame Ture used to say all the time, that black people don't own any of this property. So why, it's not, this whole argument about we're burning down our own neighborhoods is not an accurate assessment. And until the conditions that are facing these communities are dealt with properly, I mean, whatever, all responses should be on the table.
No doubt.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Agreed. And, folks like Tucker don't want to deal with that. He's just concerned.
No, he just wants the FBI to show up at her house. That's what
they do. Calling them right there. That was some snitch shit right there. Why is the FBI showing up at her house? Fuck Tucker. How about that?
But couldn't take it with a few protesters politely knocked on his door though. But I ain't gonna say that. I ain't gonna say nothing about that.
Are you saying that you knocked on that door?
Tucker give out his address.
Wasn't me.
So we can come back. When we come back, we're gonna come back with Tucker's address so we can get more.
There you go. Now we're talking.
Let's have a barbecue party at Tucker's house. That's what we do.
Hey, we got the stuff in the fridge, right, Kamal?
We
had
do.
the stuff in the fridge, right?
We could put that fridge in this property too. You know what I'm saying? A free fridge.
Hey man, we're gonna get whiteballed. But anyway, what we got happening, man? We got a big show. What are some of the topics we got coming up?
There's a lot going to be talked about on the program today because we're having fun in the morning, and we will, we intend to have a lot of fun while we get down and do our business. But there's going to be, we intend to cover the diaspora from your hood to their hood to our hood. That's we want to cover everything and then offer some of these perspectives on some of the news of the day, as we started off with, with Walter Mondale. Again, I thought that was a perfect way to introduce how we're going to get down here on this program until we ran the Kim Brown clip, which is even better.
So definitely wrestling pissed of Walter Mondale. You know what I'm saying? May he rot, you know what I mean, with all his predecessors, you know what I mean? And, if I'm in the neighborhood, perhaps I can water the plants on his grave.
Hey, can I ask a question though? Is Madeline Albright was that his sister or his twin sister or something? Because they look very, very uncannily similar to each other. I always thought that Madeline Albright was Walter Mondale's drag. That was his way of extending his political career or something. I was always confused about that. I really think that he was actually playing a double role there.
They were at least political twins, if nothing else.
Somebody got to check and see if Madeline Albright's still around.
Well, yeah, I think you're right.
I think she is. I saw her creep herself out a few months ago to justify again all those bombs they dropped in Iraq. When she was Secretary of State and talking about how all the sanctions that killed 500,000 Iraqis was worth it. So that's the kind of that's that political legacy from both the Democrat side, her and Mondale, and what Republicans do also. So that's that legacy that they keep upholding.
Well, that's all white of them. But what else we got going? We got about 2 minutes before we go to break, right?
Yeah, we got because we got the ear doctor coming up with the weather.
Okay.
And some other tidbits, and then we got a whole bunch of other segments. Real quick, forgive me for jumping in here, but Marcy Lee, we haven't heard too much from you. Just want to say good morning, welcome to the team.
Hey,
give you a chance to say something real quick before we move on. Shout out from wherever you are, whatever kind of work you're doing, and welcome to the team. Again, good morning.
Okay, thank you for having me. It's wonderful to be here this morning. I'm so glad to be a part of this team, this dynamic team with so many exceptional individuals. So I'm just glad to be here. here, just trying to get in the groove of things. So,
Mm-hmm.
you know.
All right, right on.
Okay.
Right on.
Don't be acting shy now. This is the remix. Anyway.
Right, don't worry about stepping on no toes. Just like jump on in anytime you want, cut somebody off, curse at somebody, do whatever you want.
Especially come out.
Well, I mean,
Especially.
what do you mean especially?
Especially.
I think it's about time to call that other doctor,
brother.
man.
You jumping on you jumping the ship already, bro? You know what I'm saying?
When things go bad, when segments start to get sick, it's time to call the doctor.
No doubt. It's about time to call the doctor, man. You know what I'm saying?
Man.
Where that doctor at?
Where that doctor? Anyway.
Yo.
Oh,
What's good? What's good? Yo, what's good, everybody out there? This is the Ear Doctor, and this is the RemiX Morning Show, and we are at the Weather Report. It is the Weather Report right now. What I'm going to do is I'm going to let you know the weather from here, there. We're going to talk about from America all the way to across the pond, everywhere. So we're going to break it down like this. First of all, since I'm in the ATL, big up to College Park, big up to Decatur, big up to Buckhead, everywhere out there. We're going to just give you the highs of what it is right now all around the world. Right now, we got about a high of 70 degrees today. Also, it's going to be 70 degrees up in New York, which is like the BK, Manhattan, Bronx, Boogie Down, all that. So big up to New York. Y'all going to hit about 70 degrees. Then let's take it all the way to the West Coast. We got Sacramento where they're going to hit like 80 degrees. 80 degrees is going to be a nice weather. Also, who's going to hit 80 degrees is Texas. So big up to Houston, big up to Dallas, big up to all the spots in Texas. But then let's go ahead and take it all the way over to Africa. Let's go to Accra. Big up to Accra, Ghana. Y'all going to hit about 90 degrees today. Also, who's going to hit about 90 degrees today is going to be a place called Adama, Ethiopia. Now, real quick, big up to all my people in Ethiopia. Let me give you all a little thing about Adama. So, following the World War II, Haile Selassie renamed this town after the biblical Nazareth. And now in 2000, it's been switched back to the original name, and it's called Adama, but people still know it as Nazareth. But that's just what it is. That's weather over there. Also, we got a real quick segment I got to let y'all know about where we call this colder than the white man. Now, this is one state where it's colder than the white man. Who you see on the screen right now is the man they call Ulysses Grant. This dude had so many slaves, he was colder than the white man. But the place I want to talk about that's colder than the white man is Dickinson, North Dakota. It's 37 degrees, and it's about 5 black people there, and it's colder than the white man, 37 degrees. So that's what it is. Yo, that's the weather for the day. We're going to come back on our next break. And that's how we're going to do it. So let's get back to the RemiX show, y'all, right about here, right about now. All right, let's do that. And we back.
Right on, right on. Hey, so real quick, man. So you said Adama is Nazareth, right?
Yeah.
And isn't that where they say my man Jesus is from?
I believe so. That or Bethlehem, one of them.
No, the one in Ethiopia was named after the one in the Middle East. Or
okay.
Yeah, that's not
Are we sure we didn't get it the other way? Because they said because he had that burnt bronze skin and
bronze skin.
So I just
well, if you ask the Ethiopians, you know, they
come on.
and I know the Nazarenes were known for their locks, so that's right. That's anyway.
I'm here, my family. I'm here today. You know what I'm saying? WWKD. What would Kalanji do? I am here for you.
Hey, yo,
that is not where I was going.
WWKD.
Yo,
That's right.
Kalanji, real quick. It's 67 degrees in Bridgeport. I even checked out Bridgeport.
My man.
There you go. Yo, I'm out. I catch you on the next. I catch you on the next break, though.
Cool. We appreciate that, man. Thank you, weatherman. Ladies and gentlemen, Al Broker, aka the Ear Doctor in the building. So yeah, and I am Jesus Castro. So we're gonna think about Ethiopia later. Y'all call me Jesus for now. That's right, baby.
Jesus.
Yeah. So anyway, now back to you, Jared.
So I know we had some stories that we were going to break down a little bit this morning, so I thought we would, start with Baba Lukman. I believe you had something you were going to tell us. What the fuck is happening in Mozambique? What the fuck is happening in segment?
Well, you know what? We're going to tell you what the fuck is happening in Mozambique. The same shit that's always been happening in Africa. White folks come and taking what the fuck they want and don't want to pay for it. You know, Dr. John Henry Clark said one time, he said Africa is a place where everybody wants something, but nobody wants to pay for it. So this is what we have in Mozambique. The mainstream media is reporting that ISIL, the one that we had supposedly had defeated in Iraq and Syria. Well, they made a comeback. So now they decided, hey, let's set our camps up in Mozambique. And so now, the mainstream media, even some of the sources that we actually rely upon, are all focusing on this alleged ISIL connection, right? But they're never telling you why people are fighting. And that's the thing when they do stories about Africa. Africans just like to shoot up shit. Africans just like to go in there and shoot things up, take hostages, kidnap college girls and students and all this other kind of stuff. But what they don't tell you is what's behind all of this. Well, anyway, Al Jazeera did a story on the Mozambique conflict, and they actually did some journalism work. And they went and they spoke to some of the people in Cabo Delgado, I believe, and some of the surrounding areas. And they asked the local people, what's going on? The government line is, well, ISIL is exploiting the youth and telling them that it's poverty that's causing their issues, as if the local people have to have ISIL tell them that. Well, the local people are saying that, hey, look, we are sitting around in here. Many of us got college degrees. They spoke to one person who was actually an engineer, who said that he couldn't get a job working anywhere on the newly built oil and natural gas infrastructure that all of these European gas and oil companies have built in Cabo Delgado. Now let's look at this for a minute. The United States company, the U.S. company Anadarko, found the third largest oil and gas reserves on the African continent off the coast of Mozambique. And keeping in fashion with how Europeans do things, they got their piece. Then the French company Total came in, bought Anadarko, and so then everybody came in. Not one their African company is involved in this. So these are
real quick. What was the size of that reserve? What number rank was that?
It's the third largest, Jared. The third largest natural oil and gas reserves that's found off the coast of Mozambique. So these are the culprits involved in all of this stuff. The usual cast of characters: ExxonMobil. They have this Italian company called ENI. They had the Chinese are involved in it. The China National Petroleum Service. They have ExxonMobil. They have French companies. All of these companies. Now, this is the thing. Each of them had divvied up the contracts amongst themselves for who's going to extract what. And this is the cost in real dollars. According to what I found out, and my man Lamont found out, is that the natural gas projects are worth $20 billion. But this is only by the French company Total. Total is getting $20 billion for their part. The Italian company ExxonMobil, $4.7 billion. ENI, which is the Italian company, China National Petroleum, and ExxonMobil are all going to divvy up $30 billion. So you add all that together, this is how much these reserves are worth. And yet, according to some of the local residents, 550 families were uprooted in order to make way for the construction of this infrastructure that's going to serve all of this exploration and thievery and resources. And nothing is being given to the people of Mozambique. And so we've seen this time and time again on the African continent. So the struggle is that people justly want to benefit from the resources that's underneath their feet. Yet the government is spinning the narrative that, oh no, it's not that. It's ISIL that's coming in. And this is funny. One person that they interviewed said, when they asked him about ISIL, a young man who was the college degree young man I was talking about, who has a college degree, he said, we don't even know who ISIL is. He said, they don't show their faces. They don't even tell us why they're fighting. He said, we don't know anything about ISIL. All we know is that all the people who have jobs with these companies are all foreigners. They don't hire us. He said, I went down there to get a job and they don't hire anybody from Mozambique. So, I mean, so this puts in light. And, you know, also, I must say that, you know, a lot of things have been said about China's involvement in Africa. Well, we see that China is also among those who are just taken out. They're just following the colonial imperialist method of thievery when it comes to Africa. So this is something that we need to really, really pay close attention to.
No, right on. Definitely appreciate your coverage of that. We want to definitely be in tune with what's happening all around the diaspora. And it seems also striking that didn't. No, sorry. Go ahead, Marcy.
Yeah, no, my issue is when I was reading the article, I found it interesting that the government didn't seem to be doing much for the people, that they were more so on side of these oil companies. And, you know, that was something that was striking to me. Have you found out any more information about that?
Well, I mean, the president, I think he just got elected too. What's his name, Nori or something like that. He had just got elected, but he's beholden to all of these foreign interests. He's a puppet. In fact, he is the one who wants the foreign military intervention to come into Mozambique. Mozambique being a former colony of Portugal, so he's inviting the Portuguese back, you know, to come in and help. You know, so you know, this is one of the problems that a lot of us see when it comes to Africa. I mean, this type of leadership that is backed by these thieving Europeans. And I'm not going to be too kind to China either. I mean, apparently China is seeing their the advantage of getting down with the rest of these European thieves. So, I mean, so it really begs to differ what kind of friend they really going to be to Africa. So, but yeah, the government is beholden to all of these foreign influences.
Yeah. And I think it's the same playbook, like you said, because it's the stripping of these resources, and when people revolt or find alternative means to sustain themselves, then the government calls in the troops, like you said, whether local or international, to put down a revolt. And it doesn't matter if I agree with the revolt or not, if I agree with the methods, the means, the organizational structures, or the ideology. The point is that time after time after time, people will find ways to revolt and to fight back, because they know that whatever is happening on the ground, it's not serving their purpose in their communities. And like you said, these communities that have been there, situated there for literally thousands, if not millions of years, they benefit not at all from the exploration of their land. Those resources just taken from under them, and then they're forced to move or migrate. And of course, people are going to revolt, right? What else are they supposed to do? And so, yeah, I think it's the same playbook. I think the only thing about China that I may slightly say is that China, I agree, is a thieving nation also, but it gives that sort of alternative to Western capitalism, which is why the West hates China so much right now, not because they're doing it any better, just because they're doing it different. And anything not in the Western orbit that they don't control, they fight to extinguish.
Well, I think, if I may say so, that another thing that disturbed me about this story, Kamal, and I totally agree with you, is, and we see this connected here in the diaspora too, is the fragility or the vulnerability of Black life and Black bodies. We know that the Mozambican army has been accused of just wantonly killing the citizens of Mozambique to put down this so-called ISIL insurrection. And we see this even in the Congo with this massive murder of civilians by these proxy so-called rebel groups who you don't even know who are they being backed by, who's financing them. And we know that the Congo is also another super wealthy piece of real estate that these corporations got their hands in. So it seems to be this as you say, Kamal, this playbook, and even in the United States. I mean, look at the vulnerability of Black lives over here. You know, gentrification. You know, when we keep talking about how none of these things are connected, we look at gentrification and see the removal of the black population out of places like DC and other urban areas, which is no more different than what's happening in Cabo Delgado, where you have families are being relocated and just uprooted just to serve these imperialist interests.
Yeah, and just like to piggyback off of what Kamal was saying, they were saying like over 700 people have been killed so far, and that when journalists report that they're immediately arrested, you know, that's something that's hugely it's something that mirrors what happens here, but I think on a larger scale, in a sense where these killings basically they're going on without discussion. So that's great. Why, you know, you're bringing this topic up for people to know and be aware.
And this is why the whole adios, as we call them, doctrine is bullshit, because of the fact that, like we say, this is a microcosm of the macrocosm. So we have to recognize that if you don't connect the dots, then you will be cannon fodder. You will be rubble, and that's just the reality of it. And I think that it's important, and I'm glad that Abdus is hitting us up on an international level, because of the fact that not only on the continent of Africa, but the diaspora as a whole is being affected and impacted. So when you talk about Black Lives Matter, it is a moot point, because of the fact that we know on an international level, we're being treated and dealt with the same way, and the same Negroes who exist here in the United States exist in Africa. We saying that we don't know who's sponsoring them. We know who the fuck sponsor them. We know that the Europeans sponsor them. We know that the Asians are sponsoring them. We know that the U.S. is definitely behind this bullshit. They always got their hands up in it. We know that these are neo-colonialist states that under the guise of blackface. It looks good, but it's just like living here in Atlanta. It's black faces in high places, as the comrades say, the slaves run the plantation. You know what I mean? So we got to be clear about what's what. So until there's accountability on an international level, we can never expect any justice here in America when you're talking about some shit like a Chauvin case, because of the fact that this is like Kamal said, this is the playbook. This is how they get down. And why change it if the shit works? If it ain't broke, don't fix it.
Exactly. And then, like I always say, you know, this thing among some of our people here on this piece of rock about, you know, they don't care about what happens in the diaspora. They're not African. You know, they don't care about what happens in Africa, woo-woo, and all this bullshit. Well, the people who are involved in the neo-colonialism and the continued oppression of our people in Africa and Haiti, Afro-Brazilians, Afro-Colombians, and Afro-Venezuelans, they're all internationalists. All of these people, U.S. government agencies, agents, politicians, capitalists, these people are internationalists. They don't care about borders and nationalities and religions and ethnicities. Their money goes all over the world, and they wield their power all over the world. They don't pay any attention to the divisions that they tell us that we're supposed to adhere to. So I don't understand where we get the idea that we shouldn't be internationalists if we're supposed to fight the faction that's killing us, that are doing it with an international coalition of murder and death.
No doubt. So listen, we know that here at BPM we do soda. We drink that solidarity of dispersed Africans all day, every day, and we will continue to do so. And speaking of that you know, a couple more stories to cover this morning before we move to our next break. We had, you know, one of them I'm just going to more or less go over quickly because we had such an extensive conversation about it yesterday, which was the new report that came out earlier this month that I happily played a small part in producing for the National Community Reinvestment Coalition, again, titled, and I'm just going to share it here real quick, titled Black Entrepreneurialism's Lethal Pre-Existing Condition, the Racial Wealth Divide During the COVID Crisis. And I just want to say very quickly here this morning that it is a very good non-revolutionary summary of the conditions facing Black businesses, again, pre-COVID and certainly now, and is a good, I think, sort of opening salvo for anybody looking to defend themselves intellectually against this never-ending onslaught of Black capitalism will work, Black businesses will work, we can Black entrepreneurial our way out of all of this mess, and the among the key takeaways that I just want to quickly highlight, that I've been highlighting, and there are so many that spell doom and gloom for Black people collectively. And real quick to that point about soda, again, when they assess the conditions of the Black business or Black economic condition that is in this country, they're including all African descendants. They're including continental Africans, those from the rest of the diaspora that come here. And of course, while I'm looking for it here, I'm not going to find it. But the essential point that I'm looking for that is to point out is that between 1996 and 2012, Black people in this country created more than 2 million businesses, and the capture of the national total revenue from collected by all businesses actually declined from 1% down to less than 1% of the total capture of all revenue. So the quick point here being that this is not a situation about Black people not being good with business, not wanting to start business, not knowing what to do with business. This is about a collage of problems, all starting, of course, with capitalism as an economic and social model, but that involve access to capital, segregation, segregated economies, consolidated sectors of the economy that are most wealth producing, and then, of course, just quickly, the argument, I think, does a lot of damage to people's understanding more broadly of class in the society, because the suggestion is that within an anti-Black or white supremacist capitalist society, that even white people are doing well when they start businesses, which is patently false as well. Lastly, wealth was never created by starting small businesses and circulating $1. Wealth was created initially by military and colonial conquest, going back to what we were just talking about with Mozambique and the continent. The same thing happened here, and Black people represent an internal colonial or an internal colony with that same exact extractive, exploitive relationship. So it's not about creating wealth that could be circulated within Black communities. It would be about creating wealth that is can be extracted by the so-called mother country or dominant white America and its institutions and its business. So I encourage people to check out that full interview that we did yesterday with the three of the primary researchers on the article. A lot more to say about it than we're getting into this morning that we cover there, but just a quick something to get people started with, again, part of this boom bap breakfast to let people know, as you go out into the world today, if somebody tries to run this game about start a business and you could get, do you could get better, and listening to Diddy talking about, invest in business, you can start to see that it's way deeper than that, and that's not a solution. So just wanted to share that with everybody real quick this morning.
That was well laid, and you threw Shitty Combs in there as well.
I mean, he's coming out prominently lately with the, give Black businesses money. All Black people will do better.
Shout out.
Give me money for my revolt.
Right.
That's really be that.
Mm-hmm.
Tell that motherfucker to give Black Rob's family some money to make sure.
Yeah, beat me to it. Yeah.
While you're giving away money, no good bastard. You know what I'm saying? Everybody
still deserve a few dollars too.
Man, listen, everybody that had anything to do with Puff Daddy ended up fucked up. Biggie, Craig Mack, what's the other cat name that went to jail for? Shine.
Oh, Shine, yeah.
They sued him twice, I think, at one point.
Yep. Yeah. Mary J. Blige, too.
Yeah.
Yeah, all of them.
Mary J. Yeah. Anybody had anything to do with this dude, you know what I mean?
I don't think there was anybody he didn't rip off.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So fuck Puff. But anyway, moving right along, dealing with some real issues besides his punk ass. Our main man, Mumia, is going on 20 summers right now. It's going on 40 summers since he's been incarcerated. You know what I'm saying? And he hasn't been crying. He hasn't been bitching and moaning. You know what I'm saying? He's been active. He's been proactive since he's been locked up. I think he's authored about 7 books. He even had a radio show. In fact, a television show from prison I remember one time back in 2004, I was on this TV show which was hosted by Pam Africa, and I was nervous as fuck because it's Mumia's TV show. You know what I mean? So it was myself, Chairman Fred Jr., and Filet. Shout out to Filet, did the Million Women's March. But I remember being on it, and I hope that TV show never appears because I was so goddamn nervous. I was like, they said, Brother Klein, what do you think? I was like, awa. You know what I'm saying? So hopefully that don't show up. But anyway, moving right along, Mumia had surgery yesterday. He had heart surgery. Last week, Dr. Jared Ball, Dr. Johanna Fernandez, and Bob Boyle, which is Mumia's lawyer, we did a special, and Kim Brown, we did a special dealing with his surgery. But it was actually it was an exploratory situation last week. The actual surgery took place yesterday. I spoke to Pam Africa right before this episode. We'll be getting her on soon. They haven't heard anything back in regards to his surgery. We know that it took place yesterday. So keep him, in your thoughts, in your prayers, and in your hearts, because of the fact that he's one of our most important freedom fighters, period. Not just political prisoners. One of our most important freedom fighters, period. I'm talking about when Chairman Fred was assassinated, he was one of the people at age 14 reporting on what went on when he did the walkthrough through the house back in 1969. You know what I mean? Interviewed everybody from Bob Marley to all types of folks. And it was his work. It was his political work. And this is something that's important because of the fact that on here, we're playing the role of journalists. But the thing about us being journalists is we're not the Roland Martins. We are freedom fighters. You understand what I'm saying? And that is the difference. It is a stark difference because of the fact that if you're going to be a monkey, you got to be a gorilla. You know what I'm saying? That is GUE. Not just not a talking head, not a motherfucker that's sponsored by the state. You get up there, you report what you have to do, and then you take your monkey ass out to the community in the streets and handle the business. And that's why Mumia is locked up, because of the fact that he represented the MOVE organization. You understand what I'm saying? He made sure that his brothers and sisters were, the information was being reported properly. And the state didn't like it, so the state went after him. They framed him. And right now he went from death row, but we fought and fought and fought. And now he's doing life in prison. They're still trying to take his life. That's what this whole heart surgery situation is about. So, our job and our task is to stay on a black and white asses, because of the fact that, when you talk about the state is not just crackers, it's Negroes as well that help to pull the triggers. So anyway, that's our semi-report on Mumia. I think my man Kamal is going to talk a little bit about this fake-ass Chauvin trial, and then we're going to go to our break.
So as we know, the Chauvin trial is now in the jury's hands, as they say. Closing arguments were given yesterday. I think the most important update is that the judge is signaling to the defense team that on the first attempt at an appeal, if it comes to him, he's ready potentially to give them an issue. So he claimed that Maxine Waters made some statements earlier that may influence the right to appeal this particular case. So as I think as we've also talked about earlier, or other folks, that this particular case, it seems like they may be willing to have this conviction. And I say that because there's been for the first time in some of these trials, you've had police commissioners, you've had other police come up and testify about something which is obvious, that kneeling on somebody's neck for 9 minutes is not in the penal code, and or not it's something that you are instructed to do or following policy. So those kind of like folks coming out and standing there or sitting there and being giving testimony to that fact leads to some possibility that they're trying to ensure a conviction, because they know, as Sister Kim Brown says, that if there's not a conviction, the alternative seems to be is that people will be out in the street doing their thing, doing the things that we should be doing, whether there's conviction or not, to be honest. So, but I think they're trying to forestall what would probably be a national uprising if this guy was not to be convicted of murder and or manslaughter. My assumption is that it'll be a murder conviction. So, stay tuned. It's probably going to take a few days. In this particular case, it's hard to suggest whether or not the shorter the time it takes the jury to decide whether or not that means conviction or not. because some of the evidence seems to be so overwhelming. It could be a short time period in which it takes for the jury to come back and to convict. But normally, of course, when folks talk about juries taking a short time, if they come back soon, then that usually spells good for an acquittal. So people should stay tuned, stay on guard, ready to hit the streets. Organizers all over the country, including in Atlanta, are already putting out or starting to put out places to meet, to organize at, to gather. Because if this fool is not convicted, once again, there's going to be folks out in the streets. And the thing about this case, I'll wrap up by saying this. The thing about this case that I think we talked about this earlier too, that's different from, let's say, the case like 30 years ago, Rodney King, is that folks exploded after the verdict. Here, folks started to explode before the verdict took place, which is it's a tiring process to think that anytime a cop kills one of us, our reaction has to be to explode, because otherwise there's no such thing as them taking it seriously. So, but in this particular case, because folks took to the streets so early, and now there is a possibility that because they did, that a conviction will be ensured. Now, that's no way to ensure justice, which means the system has to come down anyway. But that's kind of what we got to look forward to in the next few days.
Kalonji, I know you want to get in here real quick, but and everybody does, but just very quickly, please allow this interruption, everybody. I just want to say again, shout out to everybody here at the RemiX, everybody watching, everybody in the chat, even those who haven't hit the like button yet, who haven't fully committed to their enjoyment of what we're doing here. Because already I'm just very thrilled. I'm just thrilled at what's happening here in the way that what's going on this morning, and talk about Mumia. We will be covering political prisoners, which you will not be hearing on other morning shows. You don't hear on other outlets. That's a regular routine part of our work, not just in terms of media, but in terms of the actual in the streets lived experience of the people on this screen. So anyway, I just wanted to. Anyway, so thanks anyway. Also for that, Kalonji and Kamal, for your update on the Chauvin trial response. But yeah, somebody? Well, I know I cut somebody off. Go ahead.
No. I mean, I just wanted to say real quick, Kamal. I was listening to one of the local radio programs here, and they were talking about that the amount of support that that Mumia was getting from the outside. Basically, facilitated this operation. They couldn't ignore it. And also, I wanted to ask you, what do you think about in DC here where we're at? They're talking about already deploying the National Guard, and it's amazing how the intelligence failure of January 6th. Nobody knew what to do, but now all of a sudden, now everybody's on point. So, what do you think about that, Kamal?
Yeah, I think this speaks to the type of organizing and activism and revolt and sort of an organizational apparatus that could put pressure on the state, right? Pressure on the state to push it, to make it move, pressure to suggest that if we allow them to use their own devices, of course they're going to let Mumia die. Of course they're going to keep him in until he dies. Of course they're not going to convict this cop or convict any other cop. There is going to be a return back to segregation back in the 1950s and 40s, where you have these trials. They may put somebody on because of some public pressure, but at the end of the day, you got 12 white folks saying, "Yeah, let him go, like he just killed a nigga," kind of thing. So that's what we're up against. The natural recourse, right, is to oppress us and to destroy us. So it's only like our organizing and activism and radicalism that allows us to get the little bit of justice that we can say that we try to shoot for. But it also points to the bigger thing, is that how we want to survive for the next 100 to 200 years, right? As opposed to destroying capitalism, destroying white supremacy, doing something different that's proactively better for us. So as we put pressure, the idea of dual power again, as we put pressure on the state, as we try to take the resources of the state, we also got to build the alternatives so that our folks can feel like we're building something for our future and things that we can do in the near run. Because again, this gets tiring to have to battle the state every inch of the way without thinking about what are the actual ways and resources that we can build something that's an alternative, that's better for us, that's more loving, holistic, radical, and taking care of our folks and our people.
I think we also got to keep in mind as well that this is straight trash in regards to this whole thing with the blaming of Maxine Waters, right? Now, I'm not a Maxine Waters fan. Don't get it twisted. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
I'm against the state inside out. But on the other hand, they've been looking for a reason to flip the script. They've been looking for a reason to try to throw this case. Now, brothers and sisters, comrades out there, I know that this shit, as the brothers and sisters just said, it's tiring, it's frustrating, and it makes you want to holler, as Marvin Gaye would say. But be steadfast, definitely be a part of the organization. It's cool that you all check in and kick it with us on the morning show, but we want to encourage you to join an organization. You understand what I'm saying? Here at Black Power Media, in the RemiX, we have a number of different organizations here. We have community movement builders. We have the FTP movement. We have BAP, Black Alliance for Peace. And we have so many other different organizations that you can get involved in. You don't have to get involved in jack shit of what we're doing, but you have to be a part of something, because at this stage in the game, it is, we've been involved in a massacre. Folks keep talking about is war. It's not a war at all because of the fact that we haven't responded properly. So until we decide that we will get more organized and not be reactionaries, because that's what the fuck we're doing right now. Folks are waiting for the verdict. They're waiting to say, okay, boom, we're gonna rip this shit apart. And I'm not against you ripping this motherfucker apart. You know what I'm saying? I'm just saying, let's not get yourselves killed, or don't be no martyr for no bullshit. You understand what I'm saying? If you're gonna go out hard. Don't go out like no chump shit. Don't get locked up and we working to free your ass because of the fact that you decided to break a goddamn window. You know what I'm saying? If you're gonna break shit, break the motherfucking system. Snap that shit. You know what I'm saying? If you're gonna break something, don't wait until George Floyd is gone to talk about going out there in the streets. Take it to the streets before then. Like I mentioned the other day on the show, with Mumia being in prison and Sundiata and so many others, look, we should be in the streets every goddamn day. You motherfuckers talk about reparations. The first thing about reparations has to be the freedom of our political prisoners. If we on here on the RemiX and one of our comrades is locked up on some political shit, and we sitting here talking about all kinds of shit except for our comrade, then y'all don't need to listen to this shit. You understand what I'm saying? Because we hustling backwards. The first order operation, look, before we talk about anything, free Kamau, because we know that if anybody like us,
hey, first of all,
he'd be the one.
One of us get off the RemiX and come get me. God damn it.
No doubt.
And that's the thing, like when you look at the case with Mumia and also what is happening right now with the George Floyd case, a lot of people are feeling that a lot of times the justice system needs to be reformed. Like, and we already know that. And a lot of people are also saying that when you look at people who work within the industry, like your attorneys, your district attorneys, that they understand that this is a huge problem. And it's hard to take the system seriously when you know that someone can be framed for a murder just because, of their political attributes, So I think that that's something that people need to always keep in mind, that the system is broken. It needs to change, and it's only going to happen when we, like you said, get out in the streets and make it happen.
Yeah,
when I was a lawyer, one of the starkest things as a young lawyer was to go behind the jail or behind the courtroom, and it's a slave ship. You know what I mean? It's up and up a slave ship. So that was like striking. Is one of those things. It's just like when you see that from the perspective of somebody who's like working, quote unquote, in the system, somebody who's handling criminal cases. Like you have your things before. It's so funny. I never was arrested prior to being a lawyer, but after being a lawyer, I got arrested for a couple of things. Now lawyer-like. So let's not talk about that too much. But you get to see this kind of stuff, and you're like, you kind of like, this is the day to day, and it ain't no one lawyer going to solve this system. Ain't going to crack the code. It ain't no class action lawsuit is going to overturn the system of oppression. There's things that you do day to day as an attorney, particularly a radical or people's attorney, that folks like Bob Boyle, Michael Warren, other folks have done historically. There's things that you do, obviously, to keep the movement going. But ultimately, it's all about those plans and those actions outside of that system that we have to get involved in, that's around overturning it.
That's what I would like to see. I would like to see attorneys speak out more and educate the public about what is inaccurate, what is improper, what's happening in these cases that we should be taking a closer look at, because we don't know. But I wish that more attorneys would come out and speak about what we should be looking at.
Well, we can't ask Kamal because he's too busy getting locked up. So when we don't have, when we can't call our attorney, we got to call a doctor.
Trying to call a doctor.
Sometimes you need a doctor, so you got to call. In this case, we call the ear doctor, and then we'll be back in a few minutes with much more here at the Remix, including Dr. CBS, Dr. Layla Brown Vincent. A lot more coming. First hour already in the books, y'all. Welcome to the Remix Morning Show. Let's call our doctor.
Yeah.
Yo. Y'all are bringing it today on the Remix Show. We are back with the ear doctor. And listen, man, I'm loving this conversation, but I got like 20 million jobs, and one of them, as you see already today, was the weatherman. Now I'm gonna give y'all a little bit about sports. So what's going on in the sports? Truthfully, I only really fuck with just like Jared say, I mix what I like, I talk about what I like. So NFL, let's talk about that first. So check this out. They got a warrant for this Seattle Seahawks defensive end called Aldon Smith. He's got a battery charge in Louisiana. So allegedly, like Jared told me, this dude choked out a victim till they was unconscious at a coffee shop in Shalamette, Louisiana. And they had a warrant for this dude like the next day in court. I don't know what they did. I don't know if they got this dude's coffee order wrong. I don't know if somebody was on their phone taking too long and they just didn't get the order right. I don't know what it was, but dude straight up choked somebody till they unconscious. I don't know what happened there, but that's kind of wild. Also in NFL news, you got the Houston Texans GM Nick Casario says his team is going to be respectful of the legal process surrounding Deshaun Watson. Now, if you don't know, Deshaun Watson is the black quarterback. He nice with it, blah, blah, blah. But they saying he's been dealing with a lot of ladies, allegedly. I don't know that story neither. But it's funny how, you got these organizations that have the owners, they got they prized possession, which is a black quarterback that runs the whole team. And he's going under this. I bet y'all ain't going to say nothing. Y'all going to sit around and wait and be like, let's see how this goes down. Because if you got somebody that's running the team like him, you got to sit back and wait because that's your quarterback. That's your prized possession. But from NFL to the NBA, give y'all the quick scores real quick, and then we're going to get back to the Remix Show. So we got the Jazz played the Lakers. The Jazz beat up on the Lakers 111-97. We got the Heat. They played the Rockets. They beat the Rockets 113-91. Then we got Warriors. They played the 76ers. Your boy Curry is beasting right now. He just beat, I think, Will Chamberlain's scoring record. They just beat the 76ers 107-97. And then you got the Bulls. They beat the Celtics 102-96. So, that's that. I talk about what I like when it comes to sports. So how about that? So that's NFL, that's NBA, because that's really what we run. You know what I'm saying? But anyway, we're going to get back to the Remix Show. This is the ear doctor with another one of his 100th jobs, giving y'all the insight on what's going on in the sports world. Now, back to the Remix Show.
Right on. Welcome back to the Remix, everybody. That was hot, yeah, Dr. A. But I'm gonna have something to say about real football later on in the show.
Oh, you talking about soccer?
Yeah, no, I'm talking about real football, what this country calls soccer, where African people dominate too. I got something to say about that.
Yo, ear doctor, we're gonna have a light skin split over this one. I'm with you, man. I'm like, I grew up on some football.
Football, yeah.
Is new. I'm gonna be a little bit narrow on this one. I'm a little narrow on this.
Oh, no.
Hey, yo, what do y'all think this dude did in the coffee shop? I mean, what do y'all think happened to make this dude choke somebody out unconsciously?
Mess up my coffee, I'm gonna choke you out.
That's what I was gonna say.
Ask him.
If I said 3 shots and you put in 2, choke.
Yeah, well, 2 more shots.
I'm coming across that counter.
That's a choke out offense.
You can't mess up coffee like that, and you're supposed to be a professional. No.
In all seriousness, I don't know who the alleged victim is, but Aldon Smith is a big dude, massive sack attack, and he has a track record of some issues too, and was on some of that drink earlier in his career too. So I don't know if that had something. Maybe he had a little bit too much Irish in that coffee, a little bit too much Jamaican in that coffee or something.
Well, yo, that was the sports. I'm gonna be back for the next break, so stay tuned. RemiX, take it out from here, yo.
Okay. Hey, look here, man.
We go ahead, Kalonji, because I know we keeping it moving. We got
it's all good. I was just gonna say I'm glad I wasn't the motherfucker making the coffee. He choked me. It'd have been a different goddamn response. Put your goddamn hands on me. Fuck your coffee. Anyway,
130 pounds talking all that trash. You lay down on the floor like anybody else.
Fight, Kalonji.
Hey, I'm a bad motherfucker. I just look like this. Don't get it twisted. Anyway, moving right along. We have another segment coming up. I think we got 2 more doctors coming in. What y'all think?
We got 2 more doctors coming in, not unfamiliar to this platform. So let's go ahead and turn it over now. Dr. CBS and Layla Vincent Brown, they got a special guest with them and all of that. They're going to take it over. So let's go ahead and bring them on in and let them do their thing.
Okay. We're going to be out. We'll be back at you.
Yes, indeed.
All right, y'all. Good morning, and welcome to our segment, The Talk Black, on this Good Tuesday with me, Dr. CBS, and Dr. Layla Brown, where we will talk back about all things Black.
All right. So today we have a wonderful guest. She is a friend of ours, a dear friend of ours, Dr. Takia Harper Shipman, who is an assistant professor of Africana Studies at Davidson College in North Carolina. And she also has a book that was published recently, Rethinking Ownership of Development in Africa. And she is going to join us today to talk a little bit about the ongoing struggles to bring Blas Compaoré to some kind of accountability for his role in the assassination of Thomas Sankara of Burkina Faso. But before we get to that, I am a plant lover. And so we have discussed that I will have a plant of the day. And so today, my plant of the day is this lovely this is my newest addition. This is a Peperomia polybatra, also known as a raindrop. It's somewhat in the succulent family, but I just love the big leaves. So stay tuned every week for our plant of the day. So I'll turn it over to Sharice.
All right. So, Dr. Harper Shipman, we have you here to talk about this developing situation. But before we dive into that, can you give us a background on Thomas Sankara, who is really your favorite revolutionary's favorite revolutionary, right? He was an advocate of women's rights and women's empowerment, an anti-imperialist, and doing this in the 1980s in the era of structural adjustment and the first Afro-pessimism. So can you give a little bit of background on Thomas Sankara and what led to his assassination?
Yeah, absolutely. So first, let me say thank you all for inviting me here today. It's always great to be in community and conversation with you both. Gosh, where do you start with Thomas Sankara, right? So he was born in 1949, right, when it was still the Upper Volta, a former French colony. And or while it was, still essentially under the colonial rule, but he was a soldier in the military, right? And so, unlike a lot of other prominent Pan-Africanist and revolutionary thinkers, his formal training and intellectual foundation came from his time spent in the military. And at one particular point, he was sent over to Madagascar, and he was revolutionized when he saw the students and the peasant workers uprise and revolt, right? And essentially overthrow the government in Madagascar. And a lot of that had significant import for how he thought about revolution, coupled with his very international perspective on solidarity and working peoples, right? So when he was 10, that's when the Cuban Revolution took place, right? When he was born, that was when, China laid the groundwork for the socialist system, right, in the country. So it was his time in his life as a revolutionary was categorized and formed by these really auspicious revolutionary movements that took place internationally. And so he worked in conjunction with Blaise Compaoré, who unfortunately became, the person responsible for his assassination in 1987. But originally, Blaise Compaoré was the person who, because Sankara was in prison, he led the movement to free Sankara from prison, to overthrow the government under Ouedraogo, right? And so they were considered brothers, right? Some would say they were even like blood brothers, and how close they were in creating the movement that would start the revolution in Burkina Faso. So that's just a little bit about, I guess, who Sankara was and what informed his revolutionary politics.
So I'm wondering if you can also give us a little bit more context, right? So I know that back in, I think, 2014, when the uprising occurred in Burkina Faso, a lot of that was really around Blaise Compaoré's departure, right? His attempt to try to extend his ability to be president pretty much for forever, right? But one of the reasons that they've had a very difficult time bringing Blaise Compaoré to trial is because he's escaped to the Ivory Coast, right? And so I wanted you to maybe talk a little bit more about the relationship between Burkina Faso and the Ivory Coast, and maybe what's kind of driving their inability to pull him from the Ivory Coast at this point.
Yeah, so this is so funny. I was in Burkina the year after the revolution took place, right? I had gone back, and yes, in October 2014. And it's funny because even before that revolution, Sankara was always present, right? His memory, his politics were always present. And even I want to quickly address how people often describe Burkinabe. And Burkina Faso is also the name that Thomas Sankara gave the country, right? And it's a combination of three languages that are dominant in the country. That means the land of the upright. But people often describe Burkinabe as not contentious or not political or not up. And that's such a misreading, right? Because if you look at how that revolution took place, and that the events that led up to it, people were constantly agitating, right? They were constantly demanding for reform and constantly looking for ways to bring the Compaoré government to heel. So when that revolution took place in 2014, it wasn't just a matter of the changing of the constitution, as people often say. Sure, that ignited it, but there was a mounting tension and frustration that had been suppressed, right, ever since Sankara's murder, even to the extent that people couldn't go back and visit his grave under Compaoré, right? But so there's, as you're pointing to, there's also this longer history between Burkina Faso and Côte d'Ivoire, but especially and originally with Félix Houphouët-Boigny, who was the first president of Côte d'Ivoire, and from about 1963 until his death in 1995. And he was he was so pro capital, so pro. He was such a Francophile, right? He made Senghor look like a revolutionary back then. Right? But we all know how we feel about Senghor, but that's how Houphouët-Boigny was. Right, he even created Frank Afrique, which was he told Kwame Nkrumah, right, you're trying to do this whole, you can die, with your poverty and your independence, but we want to live dependent and wealthy type of thing, right? He was so anti-communism, and so, but there was this relationship where Blaise Compaoré's wife, Chantal Compaoré, comes from a very privileged class in Côte d'Ivoire and a connected family member, and was connected to Houphouët-Boigny. And so there was a political relationship there whereby Houphouët-Boigny wanted to kind of temper and control, the range of the revolution that was taking place in Burkina Faso. And Chantal Compaoré effectively played that role, right? So there's this longer history in terms of the relationship between Côte d'Ivoire and Burkina Faso, where Côte d'Ivoire has constantly tempered attempts to, one, revolutionize the country, and then even still, in this current moment, create these obstacles for Burkinabe to actually bring justice for Sankara by, extraditing Compaoré back to the country.
So we know that France, Raggedy France, is all up in this, right? And that, we don't want to reduce this to simply Compaoré. Of course, he absolutely is a villain and a charlatan for his role in this murder, but it's not just him, right? Because the French absolutely wanted Sankara out of power. And so can you speak a little bit about what is the role of French imperialism in all of this? And also, what do you think the outcome of this trial will be? And how do you think France will try to undermine bringing Compaoré to justice?
Yeah. So let's also, I just want to bring this back to why Sankara was considered such a problem, right? To get a sense of why France, especially Mitterrand, right? François Mitterrand, who was the president of France during Sankara's time in power, right? Sankara went to the UN General Assembly, right, in 1984, right, roughly a year after the revolution. And he was like, first off, y'all are charlatans. Y'all are continuing to oppress us, right? There's an international class of bourgeoisie who refuse to let the peasants and the workers thrive. It is classist. It is also sexist. Sankara went at the UN General Assembly and called for the expulsion of Israel and South Africa from the UN. Can you imagine, right, in 1984, when people were continuing to placate the situation between Israel and Palestine, as they do in some respects today, but also South Africa, right? And he made these connections between those relationships, right? He stood behind what was taking place in Nicaragua. He stood behind what was taking place in Cuba, right? He stood behind so many of these international struggles that he was considered a problem, right, that had to be dealt with. Coupled with the fact that he was very vocal about the problematic nature of development aid, right? He was like, there is no function to development aid other than to keep former colonies dependent upon their former colonizers, right? Maintaining relations of neocolonialism. And so it's so funny because I think this is where it's important to have a racialized critique of socialism and leftist politics, because Mitterrand was he was a socialist, right? He was considered like a leftist socialist leader within France, but that did not extend to the colonies, right? That did not extend to Black Africa. That did not extend to Francophone Africa. And so Mitterrand was like, he had actually said like he needs to be reined in, right? He's lost control. He's a problem essentially. And so France was very much behind Sankara's murder, right? Like they supported it. They did not stop it. And in 2017, in fact, well, in 2015, after the revolution, the temporary government started the investigation, right? There had been attempts over the years to try and investigate his murder, but it wasn't until 2015 that the Burkinabe government was able to actually start an investigation. And one of the things they called for was for France to declassify military information surrounding Sankara's murder. And Macron was like, really hesitant at first, right? And they were like, oh, all the information's already there except for the classified stuff. And they're like, we know, that's why we want we want it declassified. And so it wasn't until 2017 that France actually said that they would declassify material surrounding Sankara's murder. And even in a very problematic way. But I think that France is very much, even though the court that decided to proceed was a military tribunal in Ouagadougou, the capital of Burkina Faso, that we know that France depends heavily on its colonies, right? France could not continue to exist today without the pegging of currency and the economic support that their Francophone colonies provide them. And so to the extent that the relationship between France and Burkina Faso could be destabilized because of what's found in these declassified documents and what happens, we know history tells us that France will do everything in its power, and so will the U.S. Because let's also be clear, right? The U.S. is a continued force and presence even in Burkina Faso, right? We know through AFRICOM and through other strategic military operations, right? But to the extent that what they find has any lasting impact on that economic relationship, France will not allow that to come to light, right? France will do everything in its power to make sure that what comes out of this will be primarily symbolic, right? And I think that's something that people have been fighting against is that what the terms of justice are and in the aftermath of this trial is determined by the Burkinabe people, right? And that it's not purely left to France or to imperial powers to determine or turn it into a symbolic gesture.
So before we run out, I wanted to ask one more quick question. One of the reasons that I was really interested, or that I came to know more about Thomas Sankara, was actually from my own research in Venezuela. And a lot of the women that I worked with were actually using a lot of Sankara's speeches and writings because of his particular position on the role of women in revolution. Sankara had a badass brigade of women motorcycle riders, right? Like he was really serious about not just paying lip service to this idea that women have a very particular place in the revolution, but that the revolution, he literally said it, the revolution would not triumph without the participation and the success of women. So I wanted you to maybe talk a little bit more about Sankara's kind of ahead of his time position on women and sexism, particularly in Burkina Faso and sort of on the continent at large.
Yeah, and globally, right? So this is why Sankara is like, he was like everything, right, in this very short amount of time, because to imagine that in 1984, right, when you have these global feminist movements that are still trying to get their own national context to recognize their position in the quote unquote first world, right? Sankara was like, as you said, he gave this speech in 1987, the revolution cannot triumph without women. But even before 1987, because we know that was towards the end of his life, unfortunately, as early as 1983, yes, Sankara was very adamant about, he was like, there's this essential part of who we are as humans that must be reconciled with and must be liberated for any revolution or any struggle to succeed. And that is the role and the position of the woman, right? He was like, he even did programs like, in bringing International Women's Day to Burkina Faso in a very fundamental and substantial way, right? By doing something like role reversal, which seems really small, right? By, and kind of superficial in saying like, oh, men, you'll do women's tasks today and women, etc. But like the way that people were pissed about that. Let's be clear. People were really mad about that. Like, I'm not cutting wood and sweeping floors and taking care of children and doing I'm going to go drink my tea. Like, it was
I'm going to market.
I'm not going to market, right? Like, I'm not cooking. I'm not doing washing clothes by hand, going to the well. I'm not doing all of this. But even for those who did not do it, what Sankara did was bring to the fore all of the reproductive responsibilities that women were responsible for, right? And it required a complete cultural shift. And that's one of the things that was extremely important about the revolution, was that Sankara was like, the revolution we have been culturally colonized as well, right? We have to create and return and create, our own culture that fortifies our beliefs in ourselves. And that requires women, right? Women cannot be left outside of that. He made sure that women were in government positions, right? He attempted to make sure that the pay was equal, that there was no pay discrimination, right, based on gender. But again, even down to the peasants, right, to the peasant farmers, part of what he was trying to do and why there was so much, dissension in the revolution was because, again, he was trying to make sure that the issue of the rural-urban divide that plagued so many African countries in the post-colonial aftermath did not continue to exclude and marginalize rural communities where the labor depended heavily on women, right? The invisible labor of women in the form of agriculture was so important. So he just had such an amazing and profound understanding of how women were essential to all facets of the revolution, but also all facets of everyday life, right? And he really tried to make sure that was, none of this gender mainstreaming stuff and like gender, it was integrated, right? It was just fundamentally integrated in everything in all parts of how Burkina Faso was to come to be in existence, right?
Well, unfortunately, we are about at time. We could obviously continue this conversation more and more, and maybe we'll actually have you back to talk even about Blaise Compaoré's role in the 2008 coup in Guinea-Conakry. So maybe we'll have you back and we'll continue this conversation in the future. But for now, I want to say thank you so much for joining us today. You gave us such great information. And then to our viewers, thank you for tuning in to this week's edition of the Talk Black. Catch us next week, same time, same place.
Thanks.
All right. Thank you. Now we're going to bring back up the morning crew so we can keep this show rolling.
Right on. Welcome again back to the RemiX Morning Show. Thank you all very much. Thank you very much again to Dr. Harper Shipman and to Dr. CBS and Layla Brown. That was fantastic. Really appreciate what you all brought this morning.
Yeah, that was fantastic.
No doubt.
That's the best morning interview I think I've ever seen, to be honest. I was like, I haven't seen this on no mainstream, no PBS, no NPR. Nobody ever talked about this. This was fantastic.
Not at all.
No doubt.
Right on.
Yeah.
Anyway, thank you all very much. Right on. Go ahead. Yeah.
Nah, I mean, it was really dope. I'm just sitting here. I'm like, man, we talking. I got so caught up in the interview that I forgot I was a part of the goddamn show. I'm sitting there. Next. You know what I'm saying? I'm like, oh shit, I'm on this show. Anyway, what else we got popping here today, man?
I know we got another break with the doctor, and then we got several more stories. The Luke Mons are coming back with Frank Chapman. Looking forward to that. And I'm gonna set y'all straight on this football thing before we get out of here this morning too. So,
can I say fuck the NFL and their corporate sponsors? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
They ain't got jack, and they don't have jack shit to do with Kaepernick. Because you know what I'm saying. Honestly, I'm gonna play the Kalanji guy. I don't give a fuck if he get his job back or not, because he's rich. You know what I'm saying? I'm saying just start another league. That's my whole position. But anyway,
and we could get international with that and add to fuck FIFA and UEFA and League, which is what I'm about to talk about a little bit later. So anyway,
okay. For all our viewers, please go to Twitter right now, retweet and say, yo, the hottest motherfucking morning show on the block is now live. The RemiX. Take us out with the motherfucking ear doctor. Where you at, boy?
Yeah. Welcome back. Yo, I hope y'all enjoying this RemiX morning show because it is crazy. It's crazy dope. And I'm having a good time. We already hit you off with the weather. We hit you off with the sports. But this is unlike any other morning show. On this segment right here, it's more interactive where we're going to talk to the people that's in the comment section. We're going to get